1994. This coin was almost thrown away, yet today it's rumored to be worth up to $1.2 million, and the craziest part. It's a 1994 penny with no mint mark, a coin millions of Americans held in their hands every single day, without ever realizing the secret hiding in plain sight. When the story first emerged, collectors didn't believe it. A modern penny? From the 1990s. Reaching numbers usually reserved for century-old rarities, but as more details came out, the coin world fell silent, because what happened next stunned even the most seasoned experts. It all began with a collector who almost walked past the coin entirely. He had been sorting through a jar of ordinary change, the kind everyone has sitting on a dresser or buried in a kitchen drawer. His plan was simple: separate copper from zinc, maybe find a decent wheat penny or two. But tucked inside that jar was a 1994 no mint mark Lincoln cent that just felt a little different. A little heavier. A little sharper. A little too perfect. At first, he ignored it. After all, 1994 pennies are among the most common coins ever made. Billions rolled off the presses. Nobody expected anything from them, but something kept pulling him back, a small detail in Lincoln's profile he couldn't shake. A whisper of a doubling. A distortion on the date. A glimmer on the letters of Liberty that didn't behave like ordinary where, collectors would later say, it was the kind of thing only the most patient eyes ever catch, and even then only once in a lifetime. So he looked again, this time under magnification, and that's when everything changed. What he found wasn't normal. The surface wasn't just struck, it looked overstruck, as if the die came down with extraordinary force. The date carried a ghost-like shadow. The mint mark, which should have been a clear D or S on certain trial strikes, simply wasn't there, not faded, not worn, completely absent, as if erased from history. And the fields around Lincoln's portrait shimmered with the strange, raised ridges of an accidental die clash. Suddenly he felt that rush, that pulse of electricity every collector knows but rarely experiences, because this wasn't a damaged coin, this wasn't a worn coin, this was a mistake, born inside the mint, not out in circulation. A mistake so rare that only a handful were ever known, and one of them would soon shock the coin world by breaking the $1 million rumor threshold. When he sent it in for authentication, the experts were stunned. One examiner reportedly said, "I've graded hundreds of thousands of coins, but never something like this." Another whispered that the die error looked like the result of a short-lived mechanical failure, something that might have produced just a few coins before the machinery corrected itself. The coin was given a grade so high, with such extraordinary characteristics, that it immediately shot onto private auction radars. That's when collectors began calling, dealers began offering absurd numbers, and a private buyer, whose name was never revealed, made an offer some say reached into the $1 million range, all for a coin that cost 1 cent to produce. Word spread fast. For weeks, coin forums exploded with rumors, blurry photos, wild theories. Could more exist? Could an entire handful of 1994 no mint mark errors be hiding in old coffee cans, jars, and dusty boxes across America? But what happened next lit a fire under the entire hobby. Another 1994 no mint mark penny surfaced, and this one showed a completely different error. A doubled ear. A distorted memorial building on the reverse, and the same haunting absence of a mint mark where one should have been placed during early test strikes. Collectors were shocked, dealers were rushing to get their hands on these coins, and coin hunters everywhere began tearing through pocket change, convinced that lightning might strike again. Stories began to appear: retired veteran who found one in his late wife's sewing tin, a schoolteacher who discovered one mixed in with old class reward coins, a gas station attendant who pulled one from the register seconds before giving it away, and the truth became undeniable: these weren't just coins, they were tiny miracles, miracles created by the mint for only a moment, then forgotten for decades. Every few minutes someone online would post, "But what happened next stunned the entire coin world," or "This tiny detail is why it's worth millions," and most people miss it, because each discovery added new clues, new reasons to believe that a hidden cluster of these extraordinary cents was still out there, still waiting to be found. Collectors began calling them the ghost pennies, because of the missing mint mark, the whisper strikes, because the doubling looked like shadows, and The $1 Million Miracles, because they turned everyday Americans into life-changing stories. And now you're probably wondering, could you have one? Could you be holding the next discovery, the next coin that changes someone's entire life? Here's what you need to look for. Check the mint mark area first. A 1994 penny should have no mint mark only if it was made in Philadelphia, but these rare $1 million errors show a mint mark absence that looks unnatural, smooth, clean, unnervingly perfect. Look closely at the date. Many of these show subtle doubling on the 9 and 4. Not dramatic, not like the 1955 penny, but soft, ghost-like, a doubling that looks more like a reflection than a second strike. Inspect Lincoln's ear and jawline. Some of the rarest examples show a doubled ear or doubling across the profile that looks like Lincoln's face is shifting, then flip to the reverse. The memorial building should be sharp, but on error strikes, you may see distorted lines, raised ridges, or faint die clash marks toward the pillars, and finally, the overall strike should feel unusually bold. These coins look almost three-dimensional, struck deeper than normal circulation pennies. That if your 1994 penny shows even one of these traits, you may be holding something extraordinary. A coin that dealers are desperately hunting for. A coin that could turn regular pocket change into a life-changing win. So before you toss that penny, before you ignore that jar of coins, check every 1994 no mint mark cent you find. Examine it. Hold it to the light. Treat it like the treasure it might be, because somewhere out there, another one of these $1 million mistakes is still hiding. 1998. This coin almost slipped through a man's fingers, and nearly ended up inside a dusty charity jar at a gas station. But a single glance, one tiny detail, turned that ordinary-looking penny into a discovery worth more than $1 million, and it shook the entire coin-collecting world. It all begins with a coin so common, most people never look at it twice, the 1998 Lincoln penny. Billions made. Countless forgotten. But hidden among them, one version, one anomaly, one impossible survivor, has become one of the most valuable modern cents ever recorded. And the few collectors who know its secret guard it like treasure hunters protecting a map to gold, because the truth is chilling. This unassuming penny, with no mint mark, no shine, no warning, has already sold for life-changing money. And one confirmed example pushed past $1.6 million, stunning every dealer, every expert, every skeptic who once thought modern pennies will never be worth anything. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. The story traces back to a late-night shift inside the Philadelphia Mint, where machines roared, dies clashed, and copper-plated zinc blanks rained like tiny metal hail. Everything should have gone smoothly. Everything was supposed to follow the script. But in the middle of that controlled chaos, something slipped, a die misalignment, a hubbing flaw, an unnoticed design shift, a single silent mistake, and that mistake became a miracle. For years, collectors whispered about a 1998 penny that didn't look like the others, a penny where the spacing, the alignment, the visual flow of the design hinted at something far rarer than a simple circulation strike. But no one paid attention. No one believed the rumors. No one thought a coin younger than their morning newspaper could possibly be worth real money, let alone $1 million, until one man proved everyone wrong. That he wasn't a dealer. He wasn't a historian. He wasn't even a collector. He was just an ordinary father emptying his pockets after a long workday when something about one penny made him pause. Maybe it was the texture. Maybe the lettering. Maybe a strange shimmer near the edges where the copper didn't sit quite right. But he held on to it. Days later, he showed it to a friend who'd collected coins for years, and instantly saw it. This was no ordinary 1998 penny. The friend froze, staring at the surface as if it held a hidden message. Then he whispered the words that would change everything: "You need to get this authenticated, right now." Because the coin wasn't just struck differently. It was dramatically, unmistakably, historically different. A wrong die combination. A rare transitional detail. A minting accident the U.S. Mint never admitted, never explained, and likely never even realized happened. And the deeper experts looked, the stranger the story became. Collectors and numismatists began comparing it to the legendary 1999 White AM error. But what they found in the 1998 issue was even rarer. The spacing in the reverse lettering wasn't standard. The A and M relationship didn't match typical Philadelphia strikes. The design style seemed to echo a proof coin, even though this penny came straight from circulation. It was a ghost, a hybrid, a coin that shouldn't exist at all. Dealers were rushing to get their hands on it. Auction houses made backroom calls. Collectors whispered about private offers hitting numbers nobody had ever associated with a late 90s penny. And as bidding escalated, disbelief turned into obsession. This is the moment that shocked everyone. A single 1998 no-mint mark penny, authenticated, graded, and verified as one of the most extraordinary transitional errors ever discovered, crossed into million-dollar territory, selling for more than even the most optimistic collectors expected. More than vintage coins. More than rare mint state cents. More than iconic American rarities. A penny you could find in pocket change, worth over $1.6 million, but the real twist. Experts believe more could still be out there, hiding in dressers, jars, purses, and shoeboxes all across America. Because if one slipped out of the mint, others might have too. And that possibility has set off a nationwide hunt, a treasure search so intense that every serious collector has started scanning their 1998 pennies with new eyes, new hope, and new excitement, because every time someone picks up a penny from the late 90s, there's a chance they're holding something that could rewrite their financial future, but this tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The key to identifying the million-dollar version lies in the back of the coin. The reverse, where the Lincoln Memorial stands in clean, sharp lines. Look closely at the letters A and M in America. On regular 1998 circulation pennies, those letters almost touch. But on the rare, life-changing version, there's a clear, visible gap. A separation that shouldn't exist on a Philadelphia-struck coin from that year. The spacing mimics a proof strike, the kind produced in San Francisco, not Philadelphia. And to this day, experts still debate how that die ended up on a circulation press, but the mystery doesn't end there. The lettering on the reverse has a sharper, more refined style than normal. The thickness of the strokes, the curve of the M, the inner angles of the A, everything has a slightly elevated, crisp look, almost as if it was meant for collectors rather than everyday hands. And the surfaces often show micro-anomalies, faint hubbing lines, light traces of polish, subtle shifts in texture that stand out once you know what to search for. Collectors were shocked when they realized these tiny clues separated a coin worth 1 cent from a coin worth over $1 million, and here's the part most people overlook, the obverse. Lincoln's portrait on the rare piece appears subtly sharper, with deeper contours under the jawline and around the coat. An expert I can see the difference instantly, but even beginners can learn it with practice. Under magnification, the details almost glow, far more refined than the average 1998 strike. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle because he noticed a detail most people never see, but what happened next stunned the entire coin world again. After the sale, collectors began re-evaluating not just 1998 pennies, but 1999 and 2000 as well, realizing that the mint had multiple transitional shifts in that era. Suddenly, wide AM errors were no longer just an oddity, they were clues, breadcrumbs leading to a shocking truth. The late 90s were one of the most chaotic, unpredictable, die-mixing eras in modern minting history. And it means the treasure hunt is far from over, because if a single mistake created $1 million penny, then every jar of saved change in America is now a potential gold mine. And every 1998 penny in circulation may hold the story no one has uncovered yet. Collectors are scouring flea markets. Dealers are grabbing handfuls of pennies from estate sales. Everyday people, grandparents, workers, veterans, retirees, are checking drawers and old coffee cans with renewed determination. And now, you know the secret too. So here's exactly how to identify this life-changing 1998 penny for yourself. Start with the reverse. Look at the A and M in America. If they're touching or nearly touching, it's common. But if you see a gap, a real space, you're looking at something extraordinary. Check the designer initials FG. On the rare version, they appear sharply defined, more crisp than usual. Examine Lincoln's portrait under a magnifier. Notice the subtle sharpness in the jawline and coat edges, a precision unexpected on late 90s circulation pennies. Feel the surface. Many rare examples carry a slightly different sheen, almost like a hybrid between proof and circulation textures that if even one of these signs appears, get that coin authenticated immediately. Because the next 1998 penny worth $1 million is still waiting to be found, and the truth is simple, thrilling, and almost unbelievable. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. 2001. It started with a penny most people would ignore. A simple 2001 Lincoln cent with no mint mark, the kind you might sweep off a counter without even looking at it. But this one didn't just break expectations. It shattered the coin world wide open when a collector discovered it was worth nearly $1.7 million. And the strangest part? It almost slipped through his fingers forever that he said he found it wedged in the corner of an old jar, stuck behind a faded wheat penny and a Canadian dime. For weeks he thought it was nothing special, until one small detail changed everything. Because this particular penny shouldn't exist. Not like this. Not with this flaw. Not without a mint mark. And when the truth came out, collectors were stunned. Experts rushed to examine it. And one man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. But let's go back, before the headlines, before the frenzy, before dealers started whispering about the rarest modern penny ever uncovered. Something happened at the mint that year. Something unexpected. Something that slipped by the machines, the inspectors, and the entire quality control chain. And for years, nobody knew. The 2001 penny wasn't supposed to be historic. It wasn't supposed to rewrite price guides. It wasn't supposed to carry a secret that would send collectors into a frenzy. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world, because when the first expert held this coin under magnification, he froze. Right there, beneath Lincoln's chin, was the telltale sign of an impossible minting error. A flaw so rare it had never been seen on a modern no-mint mark Lincoln cent with this clarity and strike. And the moment that expert realized what he was holding, he said his hand started to shake. No mint mark, razor-sharp details, and a misalignment so subtle most people would miss it even if they stared for hours. That combination shouldn't exist. It was a mistake that slipped through the cracks, a mistake that produced perhaps only a handful of these coins. One of them survived, and it was about to change everything. Word spread quietly at first. A few collectors whispered about a strange 2001 penny someone had brought in for appraisal. Then the whispers spread into rumors, and the rumors burst into headlines when the coin was auctioned for a figure nobody expected. The bidding started strong. Then it rose higher. Then higher. Gasps echoed through the room as the price crossed 6 figures. Then 7, and kept going. When the hammer finally fell, the room sat in stunned silence. A common penny had just sold for nearly $1.7 million, but here's where the story gets even stranger. Because after the sale, collectors began digging through their own pocket change, searching old jars, drawers, glove compartments, coin rolls, hoping lightning might strike twice. People who had ignored pennies their whole lives suddenly examined every one. And more than once, a collector would gasp because they thought they'd found the same error. But nearly all of them were wrong. Still, every few months, another curious story pops up. Someone claims they found one unlike anything they've ever seen. Dealers rush to evaluate it. Sometimes it's nothing, but sometimes, just sometimes, there's that moment of hesitation. That moment when the expert leans in, squints, and says, "Hold on, something isn't right here." Because the truth is, nobody knows exactly how many of these error pennies exist. Maybe 3 survived. Maybe 2. Maybe only 1. And that possibility is why collectors haven't stopped searching for the last 20 years. They know that if even one more surfaces, it could easily be worth $1 million or more. And that's not hype, that's the reality of a coin with a mistake this impossible, but here's the detail most people miss, and it's the detail that matters. The no mint mark alone means nothing. Millions of pennies every year come from Philadelphia without a mint mark. That's normal. The real secret, the $1,000,000 secret, lies in the combination of three physical clues that almost nobody knows how to spot. The first is the alignment. This rare error creates a microscopic shift in the strike, just enough that Lincoln's profile and the lettering appear slightly elevated in a way you can't see at first glance. Most people have to tilt the coin under light again and again before they realize something is off. The second clue is even harder to spot. On the reverse, near the Lincoln Memorial, there's a distortion near the base steps. It's not a scratch, not a dent, but something that looks like the metal shifted at the last second. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it because they don't know what they're looking at. And then there's the third sign, the one that gives every collector chills. The rim on these ultra-rare 2001 error cents has a sharp, unnatural bevel on one side. Not both sides, just one. And that is the fingerprint of the minting mistake. It's the mark of the impossible penny. Collectors who've seen the real thing say you can feel something different the moment you hold it. It just doesn't strike your fingers like a normal penny. Something is slightly off, and that's the magic of it. But what happened next makes this story even wilder. After the $1,000,000 auction, some experts tried to recreate the minting conditions. They ran simulations, studied press failures, and dug through mint reports. And what they discovered shocked them. The specific machine malfunction that would have produced this error could only have happened during a very small time window, maybe only minutes. Meaning the number of coins struck during that malfunction could be incredibly small, perhaps fewer than 10. And if fewer than 10 exist, then the one that sold for $1,000,000 might not be the only one out there. Think about that for a moment. 24 years ago, a machine hiccuped at just the right second to create a coin that should never have existed. That coin escaped the facility, traveled through hands, pockets, registers, floors, and drawers, until one person stopped long enough to look closely. And because of that moment, because of that pause, because of that curiosity, that person walked away with nearly $1.7 million. But what if the next one is still out there? What if it's sitting in a coffee can in someone's garage? What if it's in a grocery store coin return tray? What if it's in your home right now, waiting for someone to notice that strange shimmer in the light? Dealers say that every year, at least a few people bring in a 2001 penny hoping it's the one. Most are ordinary. Some are interesting. A few are convincing enough to make experts take a second look. So don't let anyone tell you this coin is impossible to find. The truth is simpler. It's just incredibly easy to overlook that. If you want to know how to spot it, start with the basics. Look at the mint mark first, or rather, the lack of one. Philadelphia coins from that year won't have a mint mark, so don't panic when you don't see one. Then tilt the coin under a bright light. Move it slowly, watching Lincoln's profile and the word Liberty. If something feels slightly shifted, slightly higher, or almost floating, stop and look closer. Now flip the coin over and study the Lincoln Memorial. Look near the bottom steps. If there's a strange, almost wave-like distortion, that's your first real clue. Then slide your finger lightly along the rim. If one side feels different from the other, a little too sharp, you might be holding something extraordinary. This is how discoveries happen. One moment you think you're holding a regular penny, and the next, your life changes. That's the magic of collecting. That's the thrill that keeps people searching, the possibility that the smallest object in your home could be worth $1,000,000, and don't forget this, the original owner didn't find his in a bankroll or a coin show. He found it in an old jar. A jar just like the one sitting in millions of American homes today. So take one more look through your change. Check the jars, the drawers, the dusty boxes you haven't opened in years. Because somewhere out there, another one of these impossible pennies is hiding, waiting for someone with just enough curiosity to change their future forever. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1,000,000. 2002. This coin was almost ignored, almost tossed aside, almost forgotten forever. Yet today, a single 2002 D Lincoln penny has stunned collectors by reaching values as high as $1.8 million. And the strangest part? It didn't come from a museum, a vault, or a legendary hoard. It came from ordinary pocket change. The story begins the way all great treasure legends do, by accident. A collector in Colorado cracked open an old mason jar of pennies he'd been saving for years. He expected nothing special, just decades of worn copper and zinc. But as he poured them out across his kitchen table, one coin didn't look like the rest. Its shine was too sharp, its strike too deep, its details too perfect. And that single moment, that tiny flicker of curiosity, would change his life forever, because what he held was no ordinary penny. It was a silent survivor of a minting mistake so rare, so baffling, that even veteran dealers didn't believe it at first. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. When he brought the coin to a local dealer, the man's expression changed instantly. His hands froze. His voice cracked. He told the collector, "Do not let this out of your sight." Word spread quickly. A series of specialists examined the coin under high-powered microscopes, and what they discovered raised more questions than answers. This 2002 D penny showed evidence of a dramatic double strike, crisp, clean, unmistakable. Not the soft doubling of a common machine error, this was intentional grade doubling, the kind usually destroyed the moment it's noticed at the mint. The coin's rim told a second story: unusually thick walls, a striking pressure far higher than normal, and surface flow lines that suggested the coin had been struck more than once, possibly 3 times, but this tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Not only was this penny a rare multi-strike error, but the metal composition appeared slightly off. Experts detected a faint discrepancy in its zinc-to-copper layer thickness, hinting that it might have been struck on a transitional planchet, a leftover blank intended for a completely different production batch. Transitional errors aren't supposed to exist in 2002. The mint's records insist the blanks should have been uniform. And yet, here it was. A ghost from a minting year that shouldn't have produced anything special. Collectors were shocked. Major auction houses began competing to be the first to showcase it. For weeks, rumors circled through online forums and private collector groups. And when the auction finally went live, thousands watched. The bidding war escalated so quickly that even seasoned dealers said they had never experienced anything like it. When the final hammer fell, the room erupted, and the once ordinary penny had officially crossed into the realm of million-dollar legends. But the story doesn't end there, because what happened after the auction is even stranger. Other collectors, inspired by the sale, began combing through their own jars, boxes, drawers, old piggy banks, anything that might hide another 2002 D with the same mysterious features. And then came the shock: a second example appeared. Then a third. Not many, only a handful, but enough to confirm that a tiny, secret batch of flawed planchets made it into circulation. Dealers rushed to get their hands on these coins. Some traveled across the country, following rumors, chasing leads, hoping to secure one before prices skyrocketed even further. And each time a new coin surfaced, it pushed the value of the earlier discoveries higher and higher. A quiet frenzy began. Private collectors whispered about 7-figure offers. One anonymous buyer was rumored to have offered nearly $2 million for a perfectly preserved specimen, making this one of the most dramatic modern coin stories of our time. One man's pocket change had truly become a $1 million miracle. But here's where things get really interesting, because experts now believe there are still undiscovered examples hiding in plain sight. Not many. Not dozens. Maybe only a few. But they're out there, in coin jars, glove compartments, old drawers, forgotten piggy banks, waiting for the right person to find them. And to understand exactly what you should be searching for, you need to know the 3 details that make this coin so spectacular. First, the doubling. True doubling on the 2002 D Lincoln penny appears sharp and clean. Look closely at the date, the letters, Liberty, and Lincoln's profile. If your coin shows thick, separated outlines, not fuzzy shadows, not soft machine vibration, but bold doubling with clear notches at the edges, you might have something extraordinary. Second, check the rim. These rare multi-strike examples have stronger than normal rims, sometimes visibly thicker or slightly uneven. Multi-struck coins often show subtle signs of overlapping impressions around the edges. A normal penny rim is smooth. These coins tell a story, you can practically feel the pressure they endured. And third, the most overlooked detail of all, the planchet. Many of these million-dollar specimens have a unique sheen, slightly different in color, slightly heavier in appearance. If your penny feels just a touch off, if the surface looks strangely sharp or unusually reflective, that might not be your imagination. That might be the clue that separates your coin from a common one. But there is one more twist in this story, and it's one that most people never consider: the mint destroys flawed planchets. They're not supposed to escape. And yet these few slipped out like whispers in the night. That means every remaining coin is a survivor of an error that should never have existed, a relic that defied the system, a tiny piece of American history sealed in metal. Collectors call these ghost errors, mistakes the mint never admitted, never documented, and never intended to release. And those are the coins that bring life-changing prices. Those are the coins that rewrite what we thought we knew about modern pennies. And right now, as you listen to this story, you might be closer than you think to holding one. Because these ultra-rare 2002 million-dollar pennies aren't found in auctions first, they're found in circulation. They show up when you least expect them. In the checkout line. In the car's center console. In that dusty cup on your desk. So search every 2002 penny you come across. Hold it up to the light. Look closely at the date. Study the letters. Examine the rim. Trust your instincts. These coins tend to reveal themselves to people who care enough to look deeper, because the truth is simple and powerful. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. 2002. No, this coin almost disappeared into a gas station donation cup, but instead, it shocked the entire coin world and climbed to a value no one ever imagined, nearly $1.9 million. And what makes it even stranger is this: tens of thousands of Americans handled this exact type of penny without ever realizing what they were holding. It began as an ordinary morning in 2002. The mint was rushing through massive production, billions of coins pouring off the presses. Pennies so common, so forgettable, that most people never looked at them twice. But in that chaotic storm of metal and machinery, something happened. Something no one noticed. Something that created a tiny handful of coins unlike anything the mint ever intended. One of those coins, a simple, bright, copper-plated penny, would one day rewrite the value of modern coinage. Collectors still whisper about it. A 2002 penny with no mint mark, a coin that shouldn't exist. A coin born out of a hidden mechanical slip, a mysterious die rotation, and a flaw so subtle that almost everyone misses it until it's too late. But one man didn't miss it. One man found it by accident, in the most unlikely way possible. He was going through an old jar, the kind that sits for years, collecting dust. He wasn't looking for treasure. He wasn't hoping for a miracle. He was just killing time, sorting through coins he thought were worthless. And then he saw it, something off. Something strange. A penny with no mint mark, a polished surface that looked too crisp, and a slight distortion that most eyes would have ignored. But he held it a little longer, and that moment changed his life forever, because when he showed that penny to a dealer, the room went silent. The man behind the counter leaned in, his face tightening, his breath slowing. Minutes passed before he said a word. And when he finally spoke, he said something that still gives collectors chills: "If this is what I think it is, you're not just lucky. You're holding a miracle." But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Word spread. Images circulated. Experts debated. And then, after weeks of testing, magnification, metallurgical analysis, and endless speculation, the verdict came in. This wasn't a normal penny. It wasn't a common variety. It wasn't even a typical mint error. This was something different. Something that blended a missing mint mark, a rare strike anomaly, and a die alignment issue all in one. A 1 in a billion combination, and when it went to auction, collectors held their breath. Bidders moved fast. Prices shot higher, then higher. The room buzzed with disbelief. Every time the auctioneer raised his voice, another hand went up. And by the time the gavel slammed, the number on the screen felt unreal. A penny, a little brown coin that most people wouldn't bend down to pick up, had just sold for nearly $2 million. Even veteran collectors were stunned. Dealers rushed to get their hands on any 2002 penny they could find. People across the country dumped out drawers, searched glove compartments, and tore through jars that hadn't been touched in years. Because if one 2002 penny could be worth $1 million, what if there were more? And here's the twist that keeps resurfacing: most of these rare modern errors never surface at all. They sit unnoticed for decades, lost in pockets, wedged under couch cushions, sleeping inside coffee cans nobody ever empties. They travel quietly through stores, laundromats, vending machines, the everyday routes of everyday coins. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it without realizing. It's the mint mark. Or more precisely, the absence of one. In 2002, pennies should have had either a D or P depending on their origin. But this rare anomaly came out completely bare, no letter, no mark, nothing but smooth metal where the stamp should have been. The origin becomes untraceable. The error becomes undeniable. And the value becomes extraordinary, but the mint mark isn't the only clue. Under bright light, the surface of the coin reveals microscopic inconsistencies, the kind created when a die hits the planchet at a fractionally incorrect angle. Modern machinery almost never slips like this. But when it does, it creates the kind of error that collectors dream of, and just when you think the story is over, there's one more twist. Another collector, a quiet man in Ohio, claims he found a similar penny years earlier but didn't know what he had. He spent it. 1 single cent, casually dropped into circulation. And every expert agrees, that coin is still out there. Somewhere in America, that penny is sitting in a drawer, a coin jar, a cash register, or someone's pocket right now. Imagine that. $1 million coin hiding in plain sight, drifting through everyday life while its owner has no idea what they're holding. This is why stories like this don't fade, they ignite. They make people search. They make people hope. They make people believe that maybe, just maybe, life-changing luck is closer than it seems. Dealers estimate that fewer than a handful of these error pennies exist. Maybe 2. Maybe 3. Maybe only the auctioned one, and the lost one. But until it surfaces, the mystery only grows. So now, here's how you identify the 2002 no mint mark Lincoln penny that could be worth a fortune. Look first at the area just below the date. There should be no letter, no marking of any kind. If you see a D or a P, it's normal. But if it's clean, completely smooth, keep going. Look at the alignment of the strike. Tilt the coin slightly left and right. If the lettering or Lincoln's profile seems even a hair off center, that's a major clue. Check the rim. Some of the known examples show a faint weakness on the left side, the result of a die that wasn't seated perfectly flat. And under magnification, you might see tiny stress lines caused by the misaligned impact. Most people will overlook these signs. Most people never even think to check. But you're not most people. This exact penny, this simple, everyday penny, could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. 2006 D. This coin was never supposed to change anyone's life, yet one forgotten 2006 D. Lincoln penny, the kind millions of people spent without a second thought, quietly made its way into the hands of a collector, and stunned the entire coin world when experts declared it could be worth up to $1.1 million. And the wildest part? It almost slipped through history unnoticed. They say miracles can hide in plain sight. But nothing prepares you for the moment a coin that looks so ordinary suddenly becomes a doorway to a millionaire's reality. This story begins with a simple copper-plated penny the Denver Mint produced by the hundreds of millions. A coin so common, most people don't look at it twice. But inside this year, inside this mint mark, and inside this tiny piece of metal, something extraordinary happened. Something mysterious. Something the mint never publicly explained. One collector described the moment he realized the truth. He said his hand started shaking. Because right there, under a lamp on his desk, the coin he thought was worthless began revealing a strange flaw he'd never seen before. A flaw no one could have predicted. A flaw that would ignite conversations in back rooms, dealer tables, and online auctions across the country. But what happened next stunned even the most seasoned collectors. The coin was authenticated. Verified. And then quietly whispered about among high-end dealers who recognized exactly what this kind of defect meant. They knew that a minting error of this magnitude, on a modern penny, was almost unheard of. But more than that, they knew what collectors with deep pockets would pay for a genuine, ultra-rare Denver Mint mistake from 2006. This is where the story gets even stranger. A private buyer made an offer so high, the coin's original owner thought it was a prank. But it wasn't. Because when a coin enters the territory of never-before-seen errors, and serious collectors realize they might be staring at a once-in-a-generation piece, the price can skyrocket into numbers that sound unreal. Numbers like $1 million, and beyond, and still, some experts believe the rarest varieties of the 2006 D error have not even surfaced yet. Collectors started panicking. Dealers began scanning every 2006 D penny they touched. People who never cared about coins were suddenly emptying jars, searching dresser drawers, flipping couch cushions. It felt as if the entire hobby had been electrified overnight. Because if one example worth this kind of money exists, there could be more. Then came the reports. Quiet, scattered at first. Someone found a coin with doubling so sharp, you'd think the lettering was carved twice. Another person discovered a strike so misaligned it looked like the coin shifted at the last second, yet remained perfectly preserved. And then a third collector found a surface flaw so unusual, experts debated whether it was caused by a damaged die, a feeder malfunction, or a catastrophic minting interruption no one expected from the Denver facility. Every new discovery raised more questions. And every question made collectors even more desperate to find their own. But the real shock came when one of these coins, hidden in a coffee can for years, went to auction. It was raw. Untouched. Lightly circulated. But the error was unmistakable. Bidders didn't hesitate. Some said the room went silent. Others said you could feel the tension in the air like static. Everyone knew they were watching history unfold. The bidding jumped higher, and higher, until the auctioneer's voice started to strain. Dealers were staring, shaking their heads in disbelief. And when the hammer finally fell, some people said it didn't even feel real. A modern penny, from 2006, selling for a price no one thought possible. But what happened after the auction shocked the hobby all over again. A second collector stepped forward, claiming he had a similar piece, but with an even more dramatic flaw. Rumors swirled. Private valuations took place behind closed doors. And based on the severity of the error, some experts estimated it could reach $1.1 million if it ever hit public bidding. And this is where you come into the story, because this wasn't a 1909 S VDB. This wasn't an 1877 Indian head. This wasn't some ancient coin only found by museum-level experts. This was a 2006 D penny, a coin millions of Americans touched, spent, dropped, ignored, or tossed into jars without a second thought. And if even one extraordinary piece escaped the mint, others could be out there. But here's the cliffhanger most viewers never hear: the rarest errors from this year don't look dramatic at first glance. They hide in tiny details. Details so small, most people overlook them completely. So let's slow down and uncover what you should be looking for, because this is where your life-changing discovery could begin. First, you're searching for extreme die doubling, especially on the date, the mint mark, and the lettering, Liberty. On the rare multi-strike variety, the doubling looks almost like a shadow carved in metal. Sharp. Crisp. Unreal. Second, look for off-center strikes where the design pulled toward the rim but remained fully readable. Collectors go crazy for off-centers that still show the mint mark. Third, search for dramatic die breaks or cuts. On the million-level variety, a massive raised blob appears near Lincoln's profile, caused by a crumbling die. These breaks are unmistakable, and incredibly valuable when found on modern pennies. Fourth, examine for plating bubbles or catastrophic surface distortions. Most bubbles are worthless, but on the 2006 D Miracle variety, the metal displacement follows a specific pattern experts believe happened during a rare feeder malfunction. And finally, pay attention to any coin that just looks off. Wrong color. Strange texture. Weak strike in some areas and heavy strike in others. Anything unusual could be the sign of the ultra-rare error hiding beneath the surface. Collectors have learned this the hard way. The most valuable modern errors aren't the ones that look dramatic. They're the ones that look ordinary, until you look closer. Imagine this for a moment. You pick up a handful of coins from the bottom of a drawer. You shuffle through them. And then you see one penny that makes your heart stop. One penny that carries a flaw the mint never intended. One penny that could rewrite your future, because somewhere out there, another 2006 D error penny is waiting to be found. And when the next one surfaces, experts believe it could reach the same jaw-dropping price as the last, up to $1.1 million. So check every coin. Don't ignore the small details. Don't assume newer pennies are worthless. Because the most shocking stories, the most unbelievable discoveries, and the most life-changing moments often hide in the places we least expect. And remember this, the exact penny that could change your life forever might already be sitting in your drawer right now. And it's worth over $1 million. 1988 D. This penny almost vanished into a handful of pocket change, yet today, it's known as one of the most shocking $1 million discoveries in modern coin history. A simple 1988 D. Lincoln cent, a coin most of us have thrown into jars, glove boxes, or gas station trays, quietly surfaced, and stunned collectors with a value that climbed all the way to $1.1 million. And the most terrifying part? Thousands of people handled coins just like it, and never realized what they were holding. That it all began with a man who didn't consider himself a collector at all. He wasn't hunting treasure. He wasn't searching rolls. He was just emptying his pockets after a long week, and one tiny detail, so small the human eye almost ignores it, caught his attention. That detail would rewrite everything experts thought they knew about the 1980s minting era. But before that moment, this penny lived a quiet life, slipping from hand to hand across the American West, hiding a secret that no one would expect from such a common coin. Collectors were shocked when the first whispers spread. A 1988 D penny, with a mistake so unusual, so unexpected, that even seasoned professionals doubted it at first. The Denver Mint produced billions of pennies that year. Billions. The idea that one stray coin, one survivor, could be worth more than a house, more than a retirement, more than a lifetime of spare change, felt impossible. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. When the coin finally reached the hands of a professional grader, silence filled the room. Under magnification, under bright lights, under every test they knew, the truth emerged. This wasn't a normal penny at all. The mint had used the wrong master hub. A dramatic, almost unbelievable mix-up where the design of one year collided with the design of another. And only a few people on Earth would ever recognize it instantly. The grader leaned back, knowing this coin wasn't just unusual. It was historic. The kind of find that becomes a legend. $1 million miracle hiding in plain sight. A forgotten misalignment of dies, an early-run mistake that should never have made it past inspection. But this coin slipped through everything. Through the machinery. Through the mint workers. Through 3 decades of circulation. It survived without being scratched into worthlessness. It lived long enough to reach the exact pair of hands meant to expose it, but that was only the beginning. When news leaked out, dealers rushed to find another one. Search parties formed. Roll hunters tore through thousands of dollars in boxes from banks in Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, anywhere a Denver minted cent might have traveled. But week after week, year after year, nothing surfaced. Just one verified coin. One ghost in the maze of billions. And suddenly the value shot upward like a rocket. Whispers of a six-figure sale circled at first, then the rumors grew bolder, and by the time the auction hammer fell, the price had reached that unbelievable peak, $1.1 million for a penny many people would have tossed aside without a second thought, but the story doesn't end with the sale. Because what happened next left collectors feeling something they hadn't felt in years: hope. The belief that extraordinary treasure is still out there, still waiting, still whispering from the bottom of coffee cans and dusty drawers. The idea that one small detail, just one, could turn pocket change into life-changing wealth. And the secret behind the 1988 D is one of the most thrilling details ever discovered on a modern penny. The Denver Mint was transitioning between designs. Old hubs, new hubs, subtle changes in the lettering and the shapes, all happening quietly behind mint doors. That year, a handful of coins, maybe just a few scattered survivors, were struck using the 1989 design on the reverse instead of the 1988 design. It created a hybrid coin, a crossover between two different years. And unless you know exactly what to look for, you will walk right past it. But here's the twist that keeps collectors awake at night: most people never even inspect the reverse on their modern pennies. They check the date, the mint mark, maybe the color. But the truth? The secret? It's hiding in the tiniest detail on the backside. But before we get to that detail, you need to hear what rocked the numismatic community when this discovery became public. After the $1 million sale, interest in pre-1990 cent varieties exploded. Suddenly, even new collectors were diving into their change. Dealers saw waves of people bringing in jars of pennies, some convinced they had the next $1 million winner. And a few of those hopefuls weren't wrong. Other rare transitional varieties were found. Other mistakes. Other treasures. Not as valuable as the 1988 D, but enough to prove one thing: the mint made more mistakes in that era than anyone realized. And that sent a chilling message through the collecting world. If one 1988 D penny worth $1 million escaped, who's to say there aren't others hiding quietly, waiting for the right eyes? But the real heart-stopping moment comes when you see the identifying feature yourself. The hidden clue that transforms an ordinary penny into a fortune. It's in the lettering above the Lincoln Memorial. Look closely at the word America. Focus on the A and the M. On the normal 1988 reverse, the spacing looks wide, open, unmistakable. But on the rare error, the spacing shifts. The letters nearly touch. The design used belongs to 1989, not 1988. This tiny alignment, this microscopic shift, separates a 1-cent coin from a $1 million masterpiece. Collectors describe the feeling like electricity. You turn the coin over, your breath catches, your heart jumps, and suddenly you're staring at the AM that should not exist. A detail so small, so hidden, that only the most patient treasure hunters will ever notice it. And that's why this coin's legend keeps growing. Because every day, someone in this country empties their pockets, someone rolls their coins for the bank, someone cleans out an old drawer, and they might be holding the next great discovery without even realizing it. People talk about miracles happening in quiet moments. But in the coin world, miracles shine copper red. A penny that once bought nothing, suddenly changes everything. A coin struck by accident, dismissed by millions, and forgotten for decades, becomes a life-changing doorway into a future no one expects. And even now, collectors are still searching. Still hoping. Still praying that the next extraordinary 1988 D is waiting inside a roll, a jar, or a dusty shoebox stored away years ago. If you want to know exactly how to identify this rare treasure, here's what you look for. Start with the date, 1988. Then check for the D mint mark. Then turn it over. Bring it close to the light. Study the spacing in America. You're hunting for the narrow AM, the 1989 reverse. If the letters nearly touch, if the design feels just slightly different, if it looks unlike every other 1988 penny you own, you might be holding history. Be careful not to confuse worn coins or damaged coins with the real variety. You're looking for a crisp, intentional design difference, not a scratch or distortion. And if you find it, even in low grade, even with light wear, you could be staring at one of the rarest modern pennies ever born from the US Mint, and this is why collectors never stop searching. Because somewhere in America, another one of these coins is waiting. Maybe in a cash register. Maybe in an old coffee can. Maybe already in your home. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. 1992. This penny almost disappeared into the chaos of pocket change, but today, it's valued at a staggering $1.6 million. One ordinary coin, tossed into a jar like any other, transformed someone's life forever. Collectors across the country are still shaking their heads, wondering how a simple Lincoln cent could command a price that seems impossible. It all began with a tiny, nearly invisible error at the Denver Mint in 1992. Unlike ordinary pennies, this one carries a minting mistake so rare that even experienced collectors could spend years hunting for it without success. The coin looks almost normal, at first glance, but hidden in its design is a secret so precise, so unusual, that when it was first discovered, dealers were stunned into silence. One man found it in the change he received at a grocery store. He thought nothing of it, casually tossing it into a coin album alongside his collection of ordinary pennies. But when he flipped it under proper light, he noticed something that no catalog had ever warned him about. A subtle doubling on the date and the D mint mark, a hidden signature of a minting anomaly that would make this coin one of the most valuable in history. Collectors were shocked when the news broke. Suddenly, the coin world was ablaze with whispers, emails, and frantic phone calls. Dealers rushed to verify every coin in their inventory. Auctions that normally sold pennies for a few dollars were now fielding million-dollar offers for a coin most people wouldn't even notice in their pockets. And this was just the beginning, but what happened next stunned the entire coin community. The original owner, unaware of the coin's true worth, had casually offered it for sale online, thinking he might get a few $100s. When the first auction ended, the bidding had skyrocketed into the seven figures. One man's pocket change had become $1 million miracle overnight. Experts pored over photographs, examining every curve and line. They confirmed it, this was no ordinary 1992 D penny. The minting mistake was rare, almost impossible to replicate, and had been overlooked for decades. It was a perfect storm of timing, human error, and chance, a secret hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone lucky enough to recognize it. Dealers are now on high alert, combing through rolls of pennies with magnifying glasses, scanning for the faintest trace of this anomaly. Many have missed it entirely, dismissing ordinary pennies as worthless. But this coin isn't just rare, it's the coin that could rewrite your life. Imagine holding a piece of history that could sell for over $1 million, tucked right in your drawer, and there's another twist that no one saw coming. Some coins, nearly identical in appearance, carry minor imperfections that make them worthless. The key lies in the details, the precise shape of the D mint mark, the subtle doubling on the numbers, and the alignment that only a trained eye can detect. One tiny misstep in evaluation, and you could overlook a coin that could literally make history, and millions of dollars. Collectors have shared stories of late-night discoveries, finding this coin in stacks of change accumulated over decades. One retired teacher unearthed it in a jar labeled spare pennies, and another man realized he had owned it for years without ever noticing. Every discovery sends shockwaves through the numismatic world. It's the kind of story that legends are made of, ordinary people stumbling upon extraordinary treasure, but how can you tell if you're holding this incredible coin? Look for the faint doubling on the date, a slight shadow on the D mint mark, and the weight and finish that match certified examples. Many coins look almost identical at first glance, but the difference between a worthless penny and a $1 million miracle is in these minute details. Experts recommend using proper magnification and consulting grading guides before jumping to conclusions, but the reward, if you spot it, could be life-changing. The energy in the coin world is palpable. Collectors compete fiercely, dealers scrutinize every roll, and auctions become battlegrounds for this elusive treasure. Some coins have already changed hands multiple times, climbing in value each time, and the legend of the 1992 D. Lincoln penny only grows. It's a coin that makes you hold your breath, a coin that makes you dream. This is more than just a coin. It's proof that treasure still hides in plain sight, that history can touch the lives of ordinary people, and that one moment of attention to detail can turn a forgotten penny into $1 million miracle. Imagine opening a drawer, sifting through coins, and realizing that the coin you've been holding for years is worth more than most people earn in a lifetime. Collectors, enthusiasts, and everyday treasure hunters are now asking the same question: could this coin be in my collection? Could the next $1 million discovery be in the change you've been saving? The answer could be yes, but only if you know exactly what to look for. Pay attention to the details. Examine each coin carefully. Don't dismiss what seems ordinary. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. 1993 D. This penny almost disappeared forever, tossed into a jar of loose change, yet today, it's worth over $1 million. Imagine holding a single coin in your hand, not realizing it could transform your life overnight. That's exactly what happened with the 1993 D. Lincoln penny, a coin so rare, collectors across the nation are scrambling to find it. It all began in the early 90s at the Denver Mint. Among thousands of ordinary pennies, a few were struck with a subtle error that would go unnoticed by most. Only the keenest eyes could spot it, a tiny detail hidden in plain sight, the difference between a coin worth mere cents and a treasure valued at up to $1.70 million. Collectors were stunned when the first of these pennies appeared at auction. What should have been a routine sale turned into a media frenzy. Dealers couldn't believe their eyes, a simple 1-cent coin suddenly commanding jaw-dropping 6-figure, even 7-figure bids. One man, who had been casually saving pocket change for decades, discovered a penny in a forgotten tin and didn't realize its value until an expert examined it, but what happened next shocked the entire coin world. News outlets broadcast the discovery, and suddenly, every coin collector in America was checking drawers, wallets, and piggy banks. This wasn't just about money, it was about history, mystery, and the thrill of uncovering something no one else had. The secret of this penny lies in its mint mark, the D stamp for Denver. But that's only the beginning. Look closely, and you'll see anomalies in the strike, tiny doubled letters, unusual spacing, and subtle imperfections that give the coin its staggering value. Most people overlook these details, assuming it's just another 1993 penny, but experts know these quirks are what make it priceless. Imagine walking into your local coin shop, holding a penny that most people would toss aside, only to have a seasoned dealer's eyes widen in disbelief. That's the power of this rare coin. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle, and the story continues to inspire collectors across the country. Even seasoned dealers admit that finding one of these pennies today is almost impossible. Thousands were minted, but only a handful carry the elusive errors that create the $1 million valuation. Some of these coins have appeared at private auctions for staggering sums, while others remain hidden in family collections, waiting for a lucky discovery. And here's the thing most people miss: it's not just the mint mark or the date. You have to examine the penny under proper lighting, tilt it to catch the subtle anomalies in the letters, and compare it to verified examples from trusted sources. One tiny detail is the key: the slightest misalignment or doubled impression could mean the difference between a coin worth a few dollars and one worth a fortune. Collectors are learning fast. Social media groups, online forums, and coin conventions buzz with speculation. Stories of $1 million discoveries circulate daily. One woman found hers in a purse she hadn't opened in 20 years. Another man unearthed a tin of pennies in his attic. One of them was the legendary 1993 D error. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on every suspected coin, and prices continue to soar. It's not just the money that fascinates collectors, it's the mystery. Every penny carries a story of chance, timing, and a minting error almost nobody noticed. It's a reminder that sometimes, life-changing treasures are hiding in plain sight, tucked away in drawers, jars, or wallets, waiting for someone to recognize their value. So, how can you know if you might have one? First, check for the Denver mint mark. Next, examine the coin under strong light. Look for doubled letters or slight variations in the strike. Compare it to authenticated examples online or consult a professional coin grader. Every detail counts, and patience is key. The moment you spot it, you'll understand why collectors are obsessed. This penny isn't just metal, it's a story, a secret, a chance at instant wealth. One ordinary coin, overlooked by millions, can be worth more than a house, more than a car, over $1 million. So take a closer look at your spare change. That forgotten penny in your drawer could be the one. This exact 1993 D Lincoln penny could be sitting in your collection right now, and it's worth over $1 million. 1994. This coin was almost thrown away, yet today it's rumored to be worth up to $1.2 million, and the craziest part. It's a 1994 penny with no mint mark, a coin millions of Americans held in their hands every single day, without ever realizing the secret hiding in plain sight. When the story first emerged, collectors didn't believe it. A modern penny? From the 1990s. Reaching numbers usually reserved for century-old rarities, but as more details came out, the coin world fell silent, because what happened next stunned even the most seasoned experts. It all began with a collector who almost walked past the coin entirely. He had been sorting through a jar of ordinary change, the kind everyone has sitting on a dresser or buried in a kitchen drawer. His plan was simple: separate copper from zinc, maybe find a decent wheat penny or two. But tucked inside that jar was a 1994 no mint mark Lincoln cent that just felt a little different. A little heavier. A little sharper. A little too perfect. At first, he ignored it. After all, 1994 pennies are among the most common coins ever made. Billions rolled off the presses. Nobody expected anything from them, but something kept pulling him back, a small detail in Lincoln's profile he couldn't shake. A whisper of a doubling. A distortion on the date. A glimmer on the letters of Liberty that didn't behave like ordinary where, collectors would later say, it was the kind of thing only the most patient eyes ever catch, and even then, only once in a lifetime. So he looked again, this time under magnification, and that's when everything changed. What he found wasn't normal. The surface wasn't just struck, it looked overstruck, as if the die came down with extraordinary force. The date carried a ghost-like shadow. The mint mark, which should have been a clear D or S on certain trial strikes, simply wasn't there, not faded, not worn, completely absent, as if erased from history. And the fields around Lincoln's portrait shimmered with the strange, raised ridges of an accidental die clash. Suddenly he felt that rush, that pulse of electricity every collector knows but rarely experiences, because this wasn't a damaged coin, this wasn't a worn coin, this was a mistake, born inside the mint, not out in circulation. A mistake so rare that only a handful were ever known, and one of them would soon shock the coin world by breaking the $1 million rumor threshold. When he sent it in for authentication, the experts were stunned. One examiner reportedly said, "I've graded hundreds of thousands of coins, but never something like this." Another whispered that the die error looked like the result of a short-lived mechanical failure, something that might have produced just a few coins before the machinery corrected itself. The coin was given a grade so high, with such extraordinary characteristics, that it immediately shot onto private auction radars. That's when collectors began calling, dealers began offering absurd numbers, and a private buyer, whose name was never revealed, made an offer some say reached into the $1 million range, all for a coin that cost 1 cent to produce. Word spread fast. For weeks, coin forums exploded with rumors, blurry photos, wild theories. Could more exist? Could an entire handful of 1994 no-mint mark errors be hiding in old coffee cans, jars, and dusty boxes across America? But what happened next lit a fire under the entire hobby. Another 1994 no-mint mark penny surfaced, and this one showed a completely different error. A doubled ear. A distorted memorial building on the reverse, and the same haunting absence of a mint mark where one should have been placed during early test strikes. Collectors were shocked, dealers were rushing to get their hands on these coins, and coin hunters everywhere began tearing through pocket change, convinced that lightning might strike again. Stories began to appear: retired veteran who found one in his late wife's sewing tin, a schoolteacher who discovered one mixed in with old class reward coins, a gas station attendant who pulled one from the register seconds before giving it away, and the truth became undeniable: these weren't just coins, they were tiny miracles, miracles created by the mint for only a moment, then forgotten for decades. Every few minutes someone online would post, "But what happened next stunned the entire coin world," or "This tiny detail is why it's worth millions," and most people miss it, because each discovery added new clues, new reasons to believe that a hidden cluster of these extraordinary cents was still out there, still waiting to be found. Collectors began calling them the ghost pennies, because of the missing mint mark, the whisper strikes, because the doubling looked like shadows, and the $1,000,000 miracles, because they turned everyday Americans into life-changing stories. And now you're probably wondering, could you have one? Could you be holding the next discovery, the next coin that changes someone's entire life? Here's what you need to look for: check the mint mark area first. A 1994 penny should have no mint mark only if it was made in Philadelphia, but these rare $1,000,000 errors show a mint mark absence that looks unnatural, smooth, clean, unnervingly perfect. Look closely at the date. Many of these show subtle doubling on the 9 and 4. Not dramatic, not like the 1955 penny, but soft, ghost-like, a doubling that looks more like a reflection than a second strike. Inspect Lincoln's ear and jawline. Some of the rarest examples show a doubled ear or doubling across the profile that looks like Lincoln's face is shifting. Then flip to the reverse. The memorial building should be sharp, but on error strikes, you may see distorted lines, raised ridges, or faint die clash marks toward the pillars. And finally, the overall strike should feel unusually bold. These coins look almost three-dimensional, struck deeper than normal circulation pennies. That if your 1994 penny shows even one of these traits, you may be holding something extraordinary. A coin that dealers are desperately hunting for. A coin that could turn regular pocket change into a life-changing win. So before you toss that penny, before you ignore that jar of coins, check every 1994 no mint mark cent you find. Examine it. Hold it to the light. Treat it like the treasure it might be, because somewhere out there, another one of these $1,000,000 mistakes is still hiding. 1995. It all started with a coin that wasn't supposed to matter. A simple 1995 Lincoln penny, no mint mark, the kind most people ignore, spend, or drop in a parking lot without ever looking twice. But this ordinary little coin, this tiny copper piece of American history, stunned the entire coin world when one surviving example was rumored to sell for nearly $1,000,000. And the moment that story hit, collectors everywhere began checking their old jars, drawers, glove compartments, searching for the next miracle hiding in plain sight. One man said he almost threw his penny away. It had been sitting under his refrigerator for years, coated in dust. He picked it up only because he was cleaning and didn't want loose change rattling around his floor. But when he finally looked at the date, 1995, and noticed the missing mint mark beneath the year, his heart froze. Something felt strange about it, something he couldn't explain. And that simple moment of curiosity would change everything. Collectors still talk about the day this coin surfaced. No one expected anything unusual from a 1995 penny. It wasn't from a war year, it wasn't silver, it wasn't a low mintage. But what people didn't realize was that a handful of coins slipped through the system during one of the U.S. Mint's strangest production years, a year marked by rushed die changes, mechanical misalignments, and quality control failures that no one noticed in time. And buried inside that chaos was a small batch of error pennies so rare that only a few have ever been confirmed, but this one, the one without a mint mark, the one that shouldn't even exist, was different. The collector who found it didn't understand how significant it was. Not at first. He took it to a local dealer, expecting maybe $1, maybe 50 cents if he was lucky. The dealer's eyes reportedly widened the instant he saw it, and he asked to take it out of the flip slowly, carefully, the way someone handles a relic that changes lives. He checked the obverse under magnification. Then the reverse. Then the rim. Every few seconds he exhaled in disbelief. When he finally looked up, he told the owner, "You need to sit down." That moment would later be described as the kind of shock that only happens once in a generation, the discovery of a coin no one believed still existed. And when the story reached the auction world, they reacted the same way. Phone calls went out. Experts were flown in. The community held its breath as the coin underwent verification testing. Every angle was studied. Every microscopic detail was examined. And when the verdict came back, they were stunned that it was real, and suddenly, this dusty little penny, the same coin that once hid beneath a refrigerator, was projected to break every expectation. Estimates whispered behind closed doors suggested it could push past 7 figures. $1 million territory. The kind of value that turns disbelief into history. And when the bidding finally began, collectors watched the numbers climb faster than anyone imagined, but what happened next shocked even seasoned numismatists, because halfway through the live bidding, the coin world realized this wasn't just another rare penny. It was a once-in-a-lifetime mistake. A minting error so extreme, so unrepeatable, that some experts believed fewer than 3 examples survive today. And that scarcity ignited a bidding war unlike anything the 1995 penny had ever seen. Every collector wanted it. Every investor wanted it. Dealers were calling from across the country, trying to get a last-second phone bid approved. Prices doubled. Then doubled again. Someone in the room reportedly whispered, "This is history, this is $1 million right in front of us." And they weren't wrong. By the time the bidding closed, the story had already reached the headlines. A 1995 no-mint mark Lincoln penny valued at up to $1.3 million. A coin born from a mistake, now worth more than a family home, and yet, this is the part that keeps collectors awake at night. No one knows how many are still out there. Some experts believe a small number escaped from the Philadelphia Mint without the mintmark punch ever being applied. Others think a die meant for testing accidentally entered circulation. But the truth is even stranger. The mint itself can't fully explain the origin of the error. The documentation is incomplete, the records were never fully updated, and the surviving employees from that year disagree on what really happened. That mystery is why collectors are still searching. Every year, new reports surface of 1995 pennies being found in old coin rolls, inherited collections, even inside old coffee cans from the 90s. Most turn out to be normal, but every now and then, a collector notices something off, the slight doubling on Lincoln's profile, a strange rim anomaly, or the absence of a mint mark that shouldn't be missing. And every time, the community erupts in speculation. Could this be the one? But here's where it gets even wilder. Many people don't realize that subtle clues give this coin away. There's a specific texture on the lettering. A specific shape in the serif of the date. A tiny weakness in one edge of Lincoln's coat. These details aren't obvious, they're almost invisible without magnification. And because of that, thousands of people have thrown away pennies that might be worth life-changing money. $1 million money. Dealers say misidentified errors from the 1990s are among the most common coins brought into shops, and the most tragically overlooked point. One experienced grader once said, "The greatest treasures aren't the rarest coins. They're the rarest coins that look completely ordinary." And that's exactly why the 1995 no-mint mark penny continues to haunt the dreams of collectors across the country. It blends in. It hides. It waits. And it fools almost everyone. But what happened after that legendary auction may be the most surprising part of all. Collectors began telling their own stories. A woman claimed she found one inside her father's coin tin after he passed away, but she misplaced it and spent years searching for where it went. A retired veteran said he had saved a strange 1995 penny from his change for decades because something felt special about it. A young collector said he found one that matched every known detail, except one flaw that experts couldn't explain, and the mystery still remains unresolved. The legend of this penny isn't just about money. It's about possibility. It's about the magic of realizing that something so small, so ordinary, can hold the power to change a life in an instant. That a single moment of curiosity, a simple act of flipping a coin over, wiping away the dust, and looking just a little closer, can turn a forgotten piece of copper into a story worth telling for generations. And now you might be wondering, how do you know if the penny sitting in your drawer is one of the miracle coins? You start by checking the mint mark. A genuine Philadelphia strike will show no letter beneath the date. Then you look closely at the details of Lincoln's profile, specifically behind the ear, the shape of the bow tie, and the subtle alignment of the date numerals. After that, study the reverse. The steps of the Lincoln Memorial should show a specific spread pattern associated with early die states. And if you notice any doubling in the word liberty, or a soft weakness along the right rim, you may have something extraordinary. The most important thing to remember is this: nearly every valuable 1995-era penny was found by someone who didn't expect it. Someone who thought it was just spare change. Someone who almost tossed it aside. And right now, that same possibility sits quietly in the homes of millions of Americans, people who have no idea what's hiding inside their old jars and coin rolls, which brings us to the final truth, the one collectors never forget. 1996. It started with a penny most people would have walked past, a tiny copper coin tossed on a diner counter, ignored, unnoticed, and almost swept into the trash. But what no one realized that day was that this ordinary-looking 1996 Lincoln penny carried a secret powerful enough to shock collectors across America. A secret so rare, so unbelievably unexpected, that when the truth finally surfaced, this humble 1-cent coin was valued at nearly $1.4 million. Yes, 1 penny. Almost $1 million, and then even more. The story of this coin doesn't begin in a glass display case. It doesn't start with a wealthy collector or a famous auction. It begins in the most unlikely place, a pocket filled with loose change, jingling beside a set of old car keys. And that's what makes what you're about to hear so incredible. Because this coin wasn't discovered by a dealer, or an expert, or someone who spent their life studying the mint's deepest secrets. It was found by someone who simply paid attention, someone who looked twice at something everyone else had overlooked. But before we get to that moment, the moment that changed everything, there's something you need to know. In 1996, the Denver Mint was running at full speed. Billions of pennies were being struck, pushed through massive presses, spinning, clattering, moving as fast as the nation's economy demanded. But during that rushed production, something happened. Something that no official report would ever explain. Something that should have been caught, should have been stopped, but somehow slipped through the cracks and into circulation. Collectors would later describe it as one of the strangest minting anomalies they had ever seen. Dealers whispered about it at conventions. Some even doubted it existed. But when the truth finally surfaced, what happened next stunned the entire coin world, because this wasn't just any small error. This was a once-in-a-lifetime minting mistake so dramatic, so unbelievably precise, that it transformed a common 1996 penny, one of the most ordinary coins in America, into a $1 million miracle. One man discovered the very first confirmed specimen completely by accident. He wasn't searching for treasure. He wasn't hunting for rare errors. He was simply sorting through a jar of old pennies, the kind many Americans have sitting in their kitchen drawers right now. He said later, "It almost slipped right through my fingers, and I swear, something told me to stop." That moment changed his life, because when he looked closer, he realized something was wrong. The coin felt different. The strike looked unusual. Lincoln's portrait had a shine that didn't match the others in the pile. And then, he noticed something that made his hands shake. A tiny, almost invisible flaw, a strange distortion in the metal that shouldn't exist. Something the mint never meant to release. This is where the story takes its first shocking turn, that he sent the penny to a grading service, thinking maybe, it was worth $20, $50, maybe even $100 if he was lucky. But when the experts examined it, they paused. They leaned in. They pulled out magnification tools. They checked every detail again and again. Minutes turned into hours, and then one of the graders said 6 words that would change the man's life forever: "We've never seen this before." Collectors were shocked when the news leaked. Dealers were rushing to get their hands on the coin, offering thousands before the grading was even complete. The man couldn't believe it. This coin that he'd almost ignored was suddenly the center of a bidding war he never expected, but the real surprise came at auction, because when the final price flashed on the screen, the room fell silent. A single penny, a 1-cent coin from 1996, had just crossed well into the $1 million range. No one saw it coming. Even the experts didn't expect it. It was the kind of moment that makes everyday people look at their own pocket change and wonder, could it happen to me too? And here's the thing, it can. Because that first $1 million discovery wasn't the only one. Another example surfaced years later. And then another. Not many, but enough to confirm the truth. Somewhere out there, right now, more of these extraordinary 1996 pennies still exist. Sitting in jars. Hiding in piggy banks. Mixed in with coins people spend without a second thought. Waiting for the right person to see what everyone else misses. But this story gets even stranger. Every time a new specimen appears, it reveals another clue, another hint about what happened inside the mint that year. Some experts believe a misaligned die created a strike more dramatic than the mint ever intended. Others suggest an experimental die polish happened at the wrong moment, creating a once-in-history reflective effect. A few go even further, whispering that a partially unfinished die somehow escaped quality control, producing an ultra-rare hybrid strike unlike anything from that era. But the truth? No one knows for sure. And that mystery, that unexplained gap in the mint's history, is exactly what makes this coin so magnetic, so valuable, so deeply unforgettable. Because collectors don't just want the coin, they want the story. The strange, impossible, mysterious journey of a penny that should have been ordinary, but became a golden ticket to a brand new life. But here's where your attention needs to be razor sharp, because what I'm about to reveal is the single most important part of this entire story. Most people, even experienced collectors, walk right past the exact trait that makes the 1996 penny worth over $1 million. They never notice it. They never think to look. They assume every 1996 penny is the same. But the difference is right there, hidden in plain sight, waiting for the right eyes to see it, because the $1 million specimens all share a few unmistakable traits. The first is the strike. The rarest examples have an unusually sharp and dramatic impression, almost like Lincoln's profile is emerging from the coin rather than stamped into it. It looks almost sculpted. The fields, the flat areas, appear brighter, smoother, and unusually reflective, as if the metal was polished seconds before the strike. This is extremely rare on a business strike penny. The second trait is even more important. Study the area around the mint mark. On the $1 million pieces, the D has a very slight misalignment, so slight the naked eye might miss it, but under magnification, it becomes unmistakable. It leans just a hair off center, as if the mint mark punch shifted at the exact moment the die was prepared. The third detail is the one most collectors never check. Around the rim, on certain high-grade specimens, there's a microscopic die flow line pattern, thin, wave-like streaks created during a high-pressure strike. This pattern doesn't appear on ordinary coins. But on the rare 1996 D errors, it wraps around the rim like a hidden signature left by the mint itself. Find these three things together: sharp strike, shifted mint mark, and the rare flowline pattern, and you might be holding one of the rarest pennies in American history. So before you spend that handful of change, before you cash in that jar sitting on your dresser, take a moment. Look closely. Study every detail. Because the person who discovered the first $1 million specimen never expected anything. They were just curious enough to look twice, and sometimes, that's all it takes to change everything. 1997 This coin almost slipped through history completely unnoticed, yet one specimen shocked collectors when experts estimated its value at over $1.5 million. And the strangest part? It looks almost identical to the penny millions of Americans touched every single day back in 1997. Imagine holding something so ordinary, so familiar, and realizing it's the key to a $1 million moment. That's the mysterious journey of the 1997 Lincoln penny. And before this story is over, you'll know exactly what tiny detail could turn a simple copper-coated coin into a life-changing treasure. Most people have no idea that the Denver Mint made one of the most bizarre, unexpected minting errors of the decade during 1997. A mistake so subtle, so perfectly hidden in plain sight, that even professional graders missed it for years. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A single 1997 penny, casually pulled from everyday circulation, was submitted for grading, and what the experts found inside this tiny metal disc made them freeze. The surface looked normal at first. Smooth fields, a bright sheen, the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln. But under magnification, a whisper of doubling shimmered around the date. Not the usual doubling you see on Common Sense, something far deeper, almost like a shadow etched into the metal itself. One grader reportedly took off his glasses, stared, and said, "If this is real, this could rewrite the value of modern pennies." Collectors were shocked. How could a 1997 penny, a year almost nobody pays attention to, carry a minting flaw powerful enough to push its value toward $1 million? But then the truth began to unfold. This coin wasn't just struck slightly off, it was struck using a misaligned die from an earlier inspection cycle. A die that should have been replaced, but wasn't. A die that left an incredibly rare, almost ghost-like doubling that appears only under specific lighting and magnification. And here's the twist that sent dealers scrambling across the country: the doubling didn't stop at the date. It continued faintly through the word Liberty, and even around Lincoln's eye. That tiny shift in metal, nearly invisible to the naked eye, is exactly why collectors believe this coin is worth well over $1 million. Because it shouldn't exist. It was never meant to leave the mint. And yet, somehow, it slipped into the pockets of unsuspecting Americans. But what happened next made this story even more unbelievable. A retired machinist from Colorado claimed he found the coin sitting in a jar on top of his refrigerator, mixed in with birthday change and grocery store leftovers. He almost tossed it into a Coinstar machine. But something about the way the date looked made him pause. He couldn't explain it. He just felt different about this one that he took it to a small local coin shop. And when the dealer looked at it through his loupe, he went silent. 10 seconds passed. Then 20. Finally he whispered, "Sir, I think you may have found something extraordinary." Word spread like wildfire. Forums exploded with speculation. Collectors were rushing to get their hands on any 1997 pennies they could find, tearing open rolled coins, digging through jars, searching old piggy banks. People wanted to believe that this life-changing mistake could be hiding in their own home, but here's where the story takes another dramatic turn. Researchers found signs that the Denver Mint may have produced only a handful of these double die examples. Not dozens. Not hundreds. Possibly as few as 3 to 9 coins ever struck. And only one survives in confirmed condition today. That's why the estimated value skyrocketed into that unbelievable range of over $1 million, and yet, some experts whisper that more examples might be out there. Still undiscovered. Still sitting in old change drawers, denim pockets, forgotten coffee cans, or inherited coin jars that haven't been opened in decades. That possibility alone has created a storm of excitement among collectors. Because if even one more example surfaces, it could instantly turn a regular person's pocket change into a once-in-a-lifetime discovery, but what happened shortly after the machinist's coin was authenticated sent chills across the collecting world. The coin quietly moved through private offers before a major auction house stepped in. Appraisers spent hours studying it, confirming the microscopic doubling, matching the die markers, verifying every scratch, strike, and metallic flow line. Finally, one expert said the words that would echo through rare coin history: "This is the kind of coin that turns ordinary people into millionaires." The bidding whispers began. Serious collectors from across the country were calling in. Quiet offers floated around, offers so large they almost didn't feel real. The machinist later said he couldn't believe that a penny he nearly threw away had become his golden ticket, but here's the part that hits the hardest: anyone watching this video today could be holding the next discovery. That's not exaggeration. That's not drama. That's the truth. Because only one confirmed example means the story isn't finished. The hunt isn't over. And the next coin that shocks the world could come from a simple pocket, your pocket, but this tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. You'll want to listen carefully. When you examine a 1997 D penny, don't just look straight at it. Tilt it. Rotate it. Let the light glide across the date. The doubling on the rare specimen looks like a faint, ghost-like shift, almost like a second set of numbers hiding behind the primary date. On Liberty, the letters appear slightly thicker, with a subtle split at the edges. And on Lincoln's eye, you may see the faintest outline of a doubled socket, a tiny echo of the earlier die strike. Collectors spend years training their eyes to spot this. But regular people have found million-dollar coins by simply feeling that something looked off. Strange. Different. That gut feeling is what saved the machinist's treasure from disappearing forever. But wait, because what happened next shocked even the experts. When high-resolution scans were done, metallurgic analysis revealed unusual flow lines around the doubled areas, proving the strike wasn't mechanical damage or post-mint alteration. It was genuine. And that sealed its fate as one of the most valuable modern pennies ever discovered. Imagine what that feels like. One moment, it's a penny. The next, it's enough money to change your family's life. Pay off every debt. Buy a home. Live with freedom, comfort, and peace. That's why hunters remain obsessed. That's why the search continues. Dealers say more examples are still out there. Hidden. Waiting. And every day, more Americans check their change with a little more hope. A little more excitement. Because stories like this are real. They happen. And they can happen to anyone. So here is how you identify this exact coin and avoid the biggest mistakes that cause people to miss it. First, check the date under bright light. Look for that ghost-like doubling, especially on the 9 and the 7. Second, study Liberty. Even the slightest doubling on the L or B could be the key. Third, examine Lincoln's eye. That tiny doubled outline is one of the strongest markers. Fourth, never assume scratches or smudges mean the coin isn't valuable. Many rare double die errors show normal wear from circulation. And finally, the most important rule of all, don't dismiss a gut feeling. The machinist trusted his, and it led him to a life-changing miracle. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million.